How's it going, everybody? On this episode, I'm going to show you guys how I made a PWM box to control my trolling motor, a pulse width modulator box. If you guys enjoy this episode, please hit that like and subscribe. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Things you'll need on your build. First, pulse width modulator. I got this one on Amazon for about 80 bucks. Has a built-in fan, which is very handy for those hot days. You want to keep your pulse width modulator cooled down as much as possible. A waterproof case. You want to be able to put everything inside and make sure that it's waterproof. A 2-pack of SAE power connectors. It's hard to find 8-gauge power connectors, but if you can, I suggest finding them. But 10-gauge also works. Just try to make sure that you don't distance your trolling motor too far away from your control box, otherwise the wires can get hot. So that's why I suggest at least an 8-gauge, but 10-gauge works as fine as well. Eyelet connectors. You're going to want the yellow pack because the yellow ones are a lot larger for larger wires, like the 10-gauge wire and up. You're going to need connectors that you're going to run into your box. This is where you're going to run your wires through. I got these connectors off of Amazon. There's like 6 of them for I think it was about $10. They're waterproofing. They cinch up at the ends and they are perfect for any box that you're going to build. These are computer cooling fans. They're very tiny little fans and you can get like a whole bag of these. I got a bag for 6 of these for like $10, I think it was. They don't cost much at all, but these are very, very nice to have to keep your box and your PWM cooled down, not only with the fan that's on the PWM, but these are extra ones. And I will show you how I made my box where I can use these fans to suck the hot air out of the box and away from the PWM. Screen tape. This is what we're going to use for those fans when it comes to sucking the hot air out. And I'll show and I'll explain you why and how handy these are. A strong adhesive super glue. I like this one here. It's the all-in-one. It's heavy duty adhesive. Plus it's also a sealant. It's waterproof and it's worked great for me. Wire stripper plus crimper. You'll need this when you're going to strip your wires later. You'll need a Phillips head screwdriver. And a drill and bits. This should be everything you'll need to make the box. First thing we have to do is remove the controls. They just pop right on in. They're just simple plug-ins. Remove these so that you have them out of the way when you go about locating the PWM in your box. In these waterproof boxes, there's multiple location spots that you can have in there. I've already put one screw in. This is the location spot that I want to go about with locating my PWM. Each PWM, a lot of them have where you can locate screws in multiple spots, where they have ends that you can clip and you can screw right down into these boxes. I got one located right in there, and then I'll go about working the other ones in on these other hole spots. There's multiple spots where you can screw in. Now that we got our PWM located where we want it, we're going to take our nylon glands and we're going to locate where we want to put the holes for the nylon cable glands. I like to take the nut off the end and just kind of put it up there. Try to go straight across from the PWM. We'll just make basic little mark all the way around. Do the same on the other side. And then you're just gonna drill it all out. Yeah, it's roughly about there. Now that the holes are all drilled out for the nylon cable glands, you make sure that they're good where you can screw everything in. I like to take a little bit of the sealant and go around the outside. There's a seal for them on the inside as well, but I like adding just a little bit of this extra seal to the outside. Make sure that it's closed in very well, watertight. I'll just put that in and spin it around so I can get a good seal around it. We'll take our rubber seals on the other end, take a nut. I'm just going to screw that all on, make sure it's all tight. These are pretty easy to tighten up by hand, but I like to grab the pliers just to get that little extra tighten on them. And then we'll move on to wiring it. Now we're going to take our SAG connectors and we're going to cut them. But you want to make sure that when you're cutting, this is going to be your end that's going into the boat, to the kayak, and going to run your wires down to your trolling motor or to your battery. So you want to make sure that you leave enough wire on the back end here that you can also get other butt connectors on to run the rest of your wiring needed. And then these will be your connectors that'll run right into the PWM. You'll be able to plug them both in afterwards. Now that our wires are cut to where we want them, we're going to split the wires. Then you're going to take your wire strippers, you're going to strip the ends, and then we're going to get our eyelet connectors on. We'll put those on the end of the wires. Cinch everything up, run them up, and then crimp them in. And we'll go about running them right into the PWM box. Now that we got those all crimped up, we're going to take off our nylon cable glands. You're going to slide them up on to your wires, slide it over, and then you're just going to slide it in. It's usually a pretty easy process. Same with the other one. Slide it in, and And then we'll run it to our batteries and our motor wiring after you get everything all cinched up. Those usually tighten down pretty good on it, and they're watertight. Now we'll go about wiring these in, and then we'll get our control switches in. Now that we got those wires in, a lot of these PWMs will come and show the motor and then where your battery, your positive and your negative is at. You need to make sure that when you're taking these off, that you have these located where you want them for your battery and for your motor. And then all you gotta do is just unscrew the heads off of them, take the screws out, run your wiring in, and you're good to go. Now that we got the wiring for the PWM in for the battery and the trolling motor, we're going to go about getting the control switches in, the forward and reverse switch and your dial switch for your speed. This cap will come right off on the top there. It's a 1/4 inch drill bit, is about the same size as that. And we're going to locate on here where we want the switches at. I usually like to go in between where the wires and the PWM are in the box there. And all you got to do is just drill out, and we're going to run this up in. And there's a nut on there that'll cinch everything down. And this has 2 little locking points on it. So once you pop it in, you get it drilled out exactly where you want it. It'll just pop in. I always like to add a little bit of sealant around to make sure everything's sealed up and watertight afterwards. Now that our switches are securely in place, not going to move, we're going to get the wires connected back in on the PWM, and then you can just seal it up, call it a day. Or, as I like to do, I like to drill out more holes on the top, and then I like to put fans that'll suck out the hot air from in the box out, so that the PWM stays cool the entire time on those hot days when you're out and about. If you decide to go forward with making your cover have the 2 fans that are going to blow the hot air that it will eventually build up in the box with your PWM on those hot days, you're going to need 2 of the small computer fans. These are just DC 12 volt little fans. You can get them on Amazon. I got a pack of these for about 6 of these fans for, I think it was about 20 bucks for them. Scissors, super glue, and then this is screen tape. And the reason that I get the screen tape is that this actually has a water resistant barrier on it. Even though it's got all the opening holes, if you ever get water on it and you notice that you get water on it, all you got to do is just take a rag and tap on it, and you'll get all the water to come out. Plus, running the fans will keep the water out unless it is a downpour outside. And at that point, I suggest you have a cover or something that you can cover over your box. But moving forward, we'll go about locating these fans. And all I'm going to do is just locate where the fan's going to be at. And then I'm going to drill out holes round in a circle that'll be right where the fan is blowing out. But they're just going to be a couple holes around. Now that our holes are all drilled, we're going to take the tape, the screen tape, and we're just going to put directly over it. Measure out exactly what we need. And I like to go a little bit long on both ends, because all I do is just super glue. Super glue the whole thing down, put a little bit in the middle, just not around the holes. You know, keep a good little bit of distance away from the holes with the super glue, just so you don't fill them up. And you're gonna do it on both sides. Once your screen tape is on and your glue is dried, then you'll go about grabbing your fans. You're gonna have this side pointing to going out, because the fan blows where that top cover is. So it'll sit like that. And all I do with these fans, same thing. They got where you could put nuts and bolts in or screws in. I just super glue them. I literally put a dab of super glue on each corner, and once they're there, they don't move. The fan is not that strong. You know, bouncing around is usually never an issue. They will stay there and blow out each time. Now, if you have a heat gun, you can use a heat gun to speed up the drying process. But if you don't have a heat gun, obviously it's going to take a little bit. You got to wait for it to dry. Probably wait till the next day until you can go about getting your other side of your screen tape on. And then you'll have to wait for that to dry. And then you can get to your little fans. But if you do have a heat gun, it does make the process go a lot faster. Now that you got both sides glued up, you're going to take your fans and you're just going to put a little bit of glue all around the edges on it. Just a little bit. Try to make sure you just keep it right on each one of the corners. And then I like to put a little bit on that top plate. And you're just going to secure it right over it. Right over where your holes are. And it don't take too long for that to set. Kind of go over, spin. You should be able to see your holes through as you spin it. And then just add a little bit of glue around. Once they're in place, they're in place. Now that our fans and everything is dry, we're going to put on some fork spade wire connectors. I like to do these for our fans just because they're a lot easier to get into the screws after we've already wired everything out. You just slide everything in, so much easier. We'll take a wire stripper, we'll strip our wires. I like to go down a lot more on these, leave a lot more wire just because of the connectors. Even if you use the pink connectors, these wires on here are like the 20 gauge wires. They're very thin, really not too much to them. So I like to move everything back, kind of work it, get a larger working area with wires. So when I go to connect those connectors onto them, they have more surface area being crimped. Now that everything is all wired up, all our connectors are ready and in place, all we got to do is connect everything back to the PWM, and then we can close the lid, and that is it. Now on these, the red is positive, the red and black is your negative. And when you go to connect these fans, make sure you connect them to the motor part, not to your battery, the motor part, because you only want those fans running when the motor is running. If you connect it to the battery, those fans will run constantly as long as the battery is hooked up to it. So I'll only connect it to the motor side. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Making a pulse width modulator box is nice and handy, being able to locate it where you want to control your trolling motor. But not only that, it saves on your battery life. It controls how much battery is being used at each time when you're running it. So I hope you guys were able to take something from this and make your own box. If you guys did enjoy this episode, please hit that like and subscribe and comment down below. Let me know what you guys thought. I really appreciate it. Thank you.